Jimmy didn't practice again today, but any kind of update on him?
Yeah, I mean, he's out a few weeks.
A few weeks?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. So
Lower body.
Well, that obviously opens things up, and it looked like you had, a few guys that were really pushing for that spot. So now the competition heats up, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's what training camp's about. It's an opportunity for guys to step up. I do think some guys have had good camps, and that's the evaluation process. We're still going on. We still got 3 games left, and so those evaluations are still taking place.
If I could ask you about Rempe, I know we ask about him all the time, but what kind of camps he had for you in terms of, he's only played in the 1 preseason game. What have you seen from him? How's he looking? I think he's been really good. He came in really good shape, and it was a good summer for him, with the sense that he did a lot of work. He did a lot of work on the ice. He did a lot of work off the ice. I think he came in really good shape and put himself in a good position. Is a guy like him, he's been known to fight once in a while, but is that necessarily a part of what his role is going to be here? Does he have to do that, or is that just something that?
I think that's just part of his makeup, his DNA on who he is as a player. He's a skating, hard forechecking, physical guy. He hits, he fights, he goes to the net hard. He's a north-south player. He did a lot of positive things for us last year. So again, he's a young player trying to, get better every year and continue to grow.
Philosophically, can Brennan Othmann make this team if he's not in the top 6? I mean, does it make sense for him to be a 4th liner here? Is there, if he earns that,
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a value to that. If somebody's in the lineup and they're contributing, I think there's a value to that. And does it necessarily, to answer your question, does it necessarily mean that they have to have power play time? No. But I do think, learning a good 200-foot game both ways, offensively and defensively, there's been a lot of players that have started that way and really built themselves a foundation for their career. And so I wouldn't say that that's out of the question.
Braden Schneider's a guy he's not a huge offensive producer, but what would you say the next step looks like for him as a player? Is it more ice time? Is it just different deployment? Like, what's his next step?
I think he's on a path where his steps are good right now. He's a guy that we count on the penalty kill. He's a guy that we counted on for big minutes against top opponents. A young player that will continue to grow. I think that's his path, and that's where he'll continue to develop. But we're already counting on him for those things. And so I think once you get those opportunities and chances inside of a lineup, you want to continue to build your confidence in your game inside of those roles.
His ice time was up in the playoffs from the regular season last year. I believe it went up as the regular season went on. What improvements did you see him make during last season to trust him more?
Well, he's a really good skater. He's physical. I think he defends well. He's got a good stick. His speed and mobility to defend. He can make a good first pass. He jumps into the offense, even though it's different maybe than some of the other guys would do it last year. He was still up in the offense and looking to contribute. He had some nice goals off the rush. But again, he's a young player that's going to continue to develop inside of a role, and with that can come more minutes and more responsibility.
With your goaltenders in the preseason, I assume Igor is now playing tonight. So he'll appear in the last 2 games to get the work that he needs, presumably?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, there was a little bit of adjustment of some of the players that we had planned to play. And so, we've got a group going tonight, but it'll be a mixed group tomorrow.
Is Jonathan going to play the whole game tonight?
Yes.
Does the way Jersey's situation is, where their NHL team is all in Prague, does that change the way you're approaching these 2 games as the lineups?
No, because it's still, training camp is still about evaluation. There are players that are in the lineup, well, all players really, but there are guys that have gotten looks with our group here that are in the lineup, and a chance to watch them play a game tonight and evaluate.
I noticed at the end of practice, it was very competitive, yet there was a joyous spirit at that last drill. Is that a culture that you're trying to build?
Well,
that
there was a
already there
joyous
before?
spirit for half of them, and then there was a not so joyous spirit for the other half, so, if I'm being honest. So, and that's the way it was yesterday as well. So just a little bit on the line, which makes it a little bit more competitive, and a little happier for the guys that win, and maybe not so much for the guys that find themselves on a line somewhere.
You've had Trouba and Miller skating together. I'm wondering, would you have been more prone to look at a different setup if Lindgren hadn't gone down and you're already?
It's moved a little bit through camp. You're right, Lindy and Foxy have been pretty much mainstays all of last year for the most part, and through camp at this point. But yeah, I mean, now we're looking again, and just we'll have some chances in practice and games to put players together and see how they do. So it has changed a little bit. I think that happens. Like, we've found a lot of stability, and we've been really patient to try and not just go moving things around. But sometimes we're forced, just based on injury. And so this would be one of those times.
Peter, when you have a line like Mika's, who is going to be out there against the opposing team's top forwards a lot of the time, you know that they're going to take on a lot of the toughest defensive assignments. It looks like the way that you use them. In the evaluation process, does that factor into how much offense maybe you expect out of them, or is that an area where you look at and you kind of feel like, you want them to, produce a little bit more maybe this season?
You're right. I mean, they're a line that found themselves at times in the defensive zone if we're on the road, or if we're at home, and there's a line that's getting deployed. There's times where they probably found themselves in the defensive zone. I'd like them in the offensive zone more, but they're good players and they play the game well defensively, and so it moves around. I wouldn't say we're married to it, but there are some matchups that we look for. When you start in the defensive zone, it's more work to get to the offensive zone. When you start in the offensive zone, you're already there. And so, and I do think that the level of opponent factors into it as well. But I like the line the way it's been in camp. They came in great shape, and they've been together the entire camp, and they've looked really good so far.
Is there? I'm sure it would be helpful in some ways, like to have another line emerge where you trust them for some of those D zone starts. To maybe would you like to take a little bit off their plate maybe this season in some of those spots?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like they get 80% D zone starts.
Mm-hmm.
They don't.
Yeah.
Half the time they jump over the boards on the fly, and so that's just hockey that's going on out there. And then, maybe they're, I don't know, I'm guessing here 40% in the offensive zone. So it's not like they're buried there, but when you get an opportunity, you want your high-end players that put up a lot of points in the offensive zone, but sometimes there's other things going on as well.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about Fox, and you mentioned him earlier. Without Lindgren, at least for right now, Adam had some injuries last year, and probably maybe he didn't put up as many points as one might have expected. What do you expect from him this year in terms of, he's in his mid-20s now, he's a maturing guy, he's in his prime, whatever. What do you need from him?
I think wouldn't it be great if every year you started in the league and you put up 70 points, and then 80, and then 90, and then 100, and 120, and 150 until you hit 200 and retired. It just doesn't work that way. There's peaks and valleys and ups and downs inside of everything, and so he's a really important player for us. He's a really gifted player that gets put in a lot of situations to create, and he was a big part of why we were able to get to where we got to last year. More to do, but there was a lot that went on that was good, and he was a big part of it. So I would expect him to push to have a great season.
We saw him today a little bit with Keandre. Is that something that's a possibility, at least?
Yeah, we're looking. Like I said, I answered Larry's question. We're looking at everything. There's something that's different, and we've got to look at it now.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.